Meet me. Welcome back, boys. So, let's click on this. Ardor season is over. So, let's discuss a few things. So, number one, we'll talk about how did I do that season. As you guys know, it was the first season where I took RTA quite seriously. Number two, we're going to talk about, excuse me, things I liked about the season. Number three, we're going to talk about things I didn't like. And finally, because people are going to ask me, I'll do a quick hero overview of all the heroes I used during the season, because people always ask me when they watch my RTA videos, like what my gear is. And I'll probably change all of it soon during this free unequip. Back to farming mode, like my G-Purge can't do Wyvern anymore because I changed him to a PvP build. So we'll go over those heroes at the end. So topic number one, how'd I do? So I ended probably around 39 something. I think the last time I checked that was like rank 210 or something. So my earlier season prediction was about spot on, about top 500. I tried to do legend, but near the end it was pretty clear I wasn't going to make it, so I just called it. It was like 3 hours left and I was 180 points shy or something. So I would have had to had a perfect win rate at that point, which was so unlikely, and I was feeling like crap from getting vaccinated, so I just called it. So I think that pretty much summarizes how I do. So I'm around like a something in the top 500 player globally, I guess, but I wasn't able to do the top 100 because those players were just too consistently good for me. And we'll talk about that more in the later sections on like things I should be working on. So let's move on to the next topic. Topic number two are things I liked about the season. So I think the main thing I liked about this season was that it was a very diverse meta. There were, and this is also a con, but we're going to go into that later, but the number of heroes that I saw being drafted was actually a lot of fun. There were so many heroes, like there was at least like 50 heroes, I think, that are drafted pretty regularly. Even things that people claim are not that good or whatever, like LQC, like people sleep on her. LQC was a very common pick. I saw her all the time. Like Ruel, Doris, people sleep on them. I was seeing them pretty regularly. Archdemon, Mercedes, kind of a rare pick, but she kind of like is the replacement for Dizzy now. She's that annoying counter pick. Just a whole bunch of heroes that were popping up this season, and it was really fun to watch all the different playstyles. Like one thing I noticed was Global seemed to have very diverse playstyles, but in general it was night focused. The Asians, like the Koreans or whatever, a lot of them, I kept seeing them do like Archdemon, A-Raz, and Double Soul Weaver. I even saw one guy who built a full attack Archdemon. Like, I wondered why it was so squishy until it hit me for like 10k. I was like, holy cow. And the European people, I mean, I don't want to trash talk, but I barely ran into them and I felt like they were the weakest players. But the Asian and the global players were really strong. And it was just fun to note how different their playstyles were. The other thing I really liked about this season was it definitely wasn't the speed meta. I felt like last season it was just a lot of people speed contesting, and whoever had the better speed gear won. I felt like that really wasn't the thing anymore. Like, very few people cleaved, and I very rarely got into like speed contests where you just start drafting things like Watcher Shuri to try it, or like MRSA to try and get speed imprints for your team. At least for me, because I rarely cleave, that I didn't really run into that anymore. Whereas in the past, like even me would see that a lot. So those are the things I liked, the very diverse meta and the fact that it was really not a speed game anymore. Let's talk about the things I didn't like. And this is something that if you watched my channel, I warned about a long time ago. But this is really becoming a Wales game. And let me explain. I mean, it's always been a Wales game. I mean, Wales are always going to have the edge. But the game is becoming very rock, paper, scissors. And this is why, before I said I liked how there's such a diverse meta, such a diverse pool of heroes to pick from. The problem with that is, I mean, it all started with, like, Blood Moon Haste, I think. Where is he? Where is that little bastard? where I predicted that they were making a lot of counter heroes that were very niche. Although to be fair, Blood Moon Haste is good right now, regardless of whether the team is Arbiter or not. He's still very solid. But with these kind of mechanics and things like Delibet and Briarwitch Issaria and Operator Sigrid, there's a lot of heroes that are very good against specific things. And the thing is, it's turning these drafts a lot into a game of rock, paper, scissors because you're just repeatedly trying to counter the other team's units, right? And if you don't have that hero built, and a lot of times you know what hero you should be drafting, like maybe it's a perfect time for a APOC pick or a Sage Ball and Cezanne pick, but you just don't have those heroes or they're not geared, you cannot draft optimally. And that's what I'm finding with the best player. When I verse some of the best players, the exact thing I don't want to see, whether it's Blood Moon Haste or if I don't have enough damage to deal with an APOC Ravi or I really have no answer to Raya Lit, that's what they pick every single time because they have like every ML5 built and not just like on gear, I mean like built, like really top quality reforged gear. It's not so much a game where, like, there's still really good general purpose heroes, right? But the way the drafts work is those go first. Like the things like Flurry or A-Raz or your knights like LR Crow, Fceci, those are usually like the 1-2 picks. And then the 3, 4, 5 picks usually start ending up you being, because you have to pick up a DPS, right? It ends up being the two players trying to counter each other's DPS or their control unit, because almost always something like a Bassar or a Briarwitch or a Fairy Tale Tenebria will be drafted as well. And that was one thing that really limited me. I really think if I'd Holiday Yafine built, that would have helped me a lot, because me having to respond to Bassar all the time with Lilius was kind of annoying, especially if they had an S10A, whereas Holiday Yafine is pretty good against both S10A and Bassar. Again, the point is, you need to have so many heroes built now to draft effectively. And if you're a pure F2P player, I think it's almost impossible to keep up, because even if you could keep up with the heroes, you can't keep up with the gear because you're not going to have enough energy to farm gear for 50 6-star heroes. So inevitably, you're going to have to put some of your counterpick heroes on trashy 85 gear or something, and it's not going to be enough. So I mean, I don't know if that's really a problem because, the whales are always going to have an edge, and obviously the more heroes you have built, the better you're going to be. But I felt like it was more obvious this season with all these rock, paper, scissors counter heroes out now, that you have to have a lot of stuff built to really draft well, because I just felt like a lot of times there was a very specific hero that I felt would be a perfect fit, and I just couldn't pick it because I either didn't have it built. The other one is not specific to this season, but one thing I really hated about this season was the matchmaking. It really ruined my pushes when it kept matching me up against people like 1,000 MMR lower, and I would lose to them. And if I beat them, I get 1 point. If I lose 20. And I was like, why is this happening? And I think they need to change it so you don't insta-queue into them. Like, fine, if I'm sitting in queue for 3 minutes and I can't find anyone to put me against, match me up against a lower player. But I think it was like the last day of the season, and I insta-queued into people like 800 MMR below me 3 times in a row, and I won like 2 and lost 1, and I was net down like 15 points. I think that's absurd, and it's really infuriating when you're trying to push. They need to fix the matchmaking system a little bit so that kind of stuff doesn't happen so often. But again, that's not season specific, that's just a general complaint. So anyways, those are my overall thoughts on the RTA season in general. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. I don't know if I'll take it super seriously next season unless I mean, obviously I don't farm much. I think I need to just do my farming. I've actually been slacking lately because of RTA. And obviously I have all these sky stones. I don't buy leaf packs. I just need to get more gear, guys. But I'm lazy. I'm very lazy, but we'll see. If I can get more gear and some more meta heroes, I'll try for RTA again next season as well. But anyways, final section, topic 4, hero overview, because you guys are going to ask me. I'm going to point out the heroes I used the most often in RTA. And, they're in my videos a lot, and you could just scope them out. So Ravi, very happy with how she's built. She was one of my go-tos, and it really pissed me off when they would steal her from me. But she has pretty top-notch gear. This is a perfectly good build. Yeah, definitely one of my core picks. A-Roz, mine's on the tankier side, a little slow for a top tier A-Roz, but he is tankier. I used him pretty regularly, but not too much. Lilius I used all the time because she was my go-to counter Bazaar pick. Because usually they wouldn't ban her because I had something else on my team that was way more threatening. So she was my way of dealing with Bazaar. Her gear is not too good. I mean, she's pretty average, but her damage is weak and doesn't really have any effectiveness. And her defense is too low, so she can't even be considered a tank build. But she's very balanced. This was usable, and I had mine on Steadfast Gatekeeper to push up in front of Politis teams. My Kayron's just on Troll counter build. This build is not too great. I mean, he has like 67 gear, but I rarely used him this season because of F10A and Cerise anyway. Politis, her gear is pretty ass. This is what I'm talking about. Like, when your counter pick heroes have bad gear, it's not really that good. But I had her built just in case I ran into cleavers, and I think she did her, and I wanted some gear on her just in case they didn't ban her. So I very rarely used her. I did draft her, but every time I drafted her, she got banned. So that's fine. My Crow, I'm not happy with his gear. I feel like he gets provoked 100% of the time, so I want to bump this up to like 130. But Crow was very good this season, especially with the G-Purge meta and Ravis and SSBs and stuff. Crow was a very good deterrent to a lot of these teams. So Crow popped up a lot, and I used him fairly regularly. Cerise I didn't use too much because it's not my playstyle, but she is a good draft into G-Purge teams because they're very highly motivated to ban her. Although the one thing I don't like is this is pretty inconsistent with 15%. There have been times where I don't land Restrict and G-Purge just destroys me. SSB core pick for me, tank SSB with a lot of damage, or as many damage I could get without sacrificing too much defensive stats. I prefer a tank build, but she was a core pick for me as well. Fabria, mine's a little too squishy. A lot of people are running her on like health mains with less effectiveness. I just stacked on the effectiveness, so I landed on pretty much anything. And I had mine on CRN, but near the end of the season I put her on Taga Hells because I don't have an extra Abyssal. Amomo, poor Amomo, used to be one of my favorite heroes. She's benched. Dien's gear hasn't changed in ages. I barely use her. Same with Valencia. She used to be one of my favorite heroes. This season, she kind of fell off. Flurry, I used every once in a while, but in general, I banned it because I don't like dealing with it. Landy, I drafted regularly. Mine's on the tankier end, but still does pretty solid damage after her S2 ramps up. So she was a pretty common pick for me, definitely core. Bazaar was core. Mine's very slow, or not very slow, not super fast, but it's fine because in this meta it was very rarely a speed contest. Ray I use sometimes just to counter super debuff heavy teams, but he was super squishy. Luckily, most people tended not to go for him. If they did, he just died because he was a wet napkin with this gear I gave him, but he did have 240 effect resist. Rowana I actually used quite a lot. I think she's quite good, especially obviously against SSB, but she's also good against Fabria, and she just kind of sits there and puts the revive buff up. I put mine on Stella Harpa, used her pretty regularly, and this was my G-Purge build. Some people went like an even lower HP, high crit chance, high crit damage build. I made mine fast, and I didn't have the gear, so I just put speed gear on him, because I wanted to make sure he was tuned to go before any of my DPS. It didn't make any sense for me to give him more crit damage but have him go after my DPS if he didn't have attack buff. So I prioritized speed and speed cycling. LQC, I wish her gear was better, but I did draft her pretty often. This crit chance was killer, cost me a few games, but against certain teams, like she pairs well with G-Purge. Attack buff S3 into Fceci teams, it's like a huge one-shot. Fighter Maya actually loved using against Arbiter teams. Obviously, her gear isn't that good either. 85. Again, all my counter pecks don't have really good gear, but she won me quite a few matches. LR Crow, very core. Realistically, I should have had him a little bit faster, but I just liked these defensive stats too much. I wish I could get him imprints, but I couldn't. But definitely a core hero for me. T-Cern use all the time, but she wasn't that good in this meta, but her gear's fine. Litica, her gear is ass, obviously. I never use her, don't use this. Doris and Ruel have pretty much the same stats. Same build, effect resist with decent tank stats. These were kind of counter picks, but I use them pretty regularly as well. This is my trash D-Corv. I like using D-Corv, but with this gear, he was just a liability in all my drafts. ML Ken just sucks. His gear's okay, but he just loses every match I put him in. Fceci, normal, standard build, nothing special. RB, realistically, I should have changed. So RB was a big problem for me. I should have changed him to degen RB, like counter set, tanky, slower MLDB. The problem with RB for me was he essentially became a 5 pick because if I picked him early, I risked running into something like Bazaar, Blood Moon Haste or something where suddenly I have 2 must bans up against me, or something like Blood Moon Haste Tomoka, where no matter what I do, RB's either going to get deleted or just start giving his team immunity and barriers. So that's why so many people went degen RB, because if you go tank degen RB, Tomoka can't one-shot him, and Tomoka becomes a liability for the enemy team. And also Blood Moon Haste can't kill him in the opener. So a lot of people switched their RBs to degen RBs for the RTA season. Because I use him as my dog walker, I didn't want to do that. But honestly, it made RB essentially unusable for me. The only time he really helped was when he gabbed, because, gab gaming. But yeah. E. coli I use as a niche pick when they picked a bunch of single target heroes expecting like a G-Purge draft. So yeah, Opsig I don't use. Archdemon I use sometimes against like Riolet teams, but her gear, it's fully reforged, but these pieces are just not particularly good. So her overall stats end up being not that great. I mean, she has 43 effect resist. Champ Z I rarely use because even control teams seem to just blow him up nowadays. S10A I used all the time, obviously. I wish I could get rid of some of this effect resist and bump it into some of these other stats like HP. Core pick. And Tomoka, I used her to counter RB, but again, I just discussed this with RB. A lot of times I still was reluctant to, unless I remembered the player and knew they were running a speed RB. Because if you run this into a degen RB and you don't kill it, basically she just sits there and does nothing and gets demolished by RB the rest of the game. So it's a very risky draft to take. So anyways, that was my overview of this RTA season. That was my hero overview. What I'll do in the next few days is I had a bunch of matches recorded against some top players where I wasn't actually talking because, I don't know how to say this, but it gets kind of hard on my voice or throat, whatever you want to call it, to just be talking for hours. So I was just recording matches without saying anything a bunch of times. So I think I'll just string some of those videos and kind of make a while back I did like a music video of RTA matches. I'll do it this time, except it's all legend players and stuff. And hopefully you guys will enjoy that. And I hope everyone was able to get what they were looking for out of this season. I know for most of you it was that super awesome Fallen Cecilia skin. And whoever got the frames they were hunting for, whether it's a Masters frame or a Champion frame or even a Legend frame, I hope you guys met those goals as well. And I look forward to seeing you guys in RTA next season. Thanks for watching. Till next time, and peace out.